They had no idea I was about to destroy everything they'd built on my back. I'm Sarah Chen, 36 years old, and I dedicated a decade of my life to creating TechFlow Solutions from absolutely nothing. The moment that text from my brother Marcus lit up my phone, I felt my world tilt sideways. Be ready for a call from our attorney. The business I'd poured every ounce of my being into, where I'd generously shared equity with family while securing my 51% controlling stake, was about to be ripped away from me by the very people I'd lifted up. Those cold, calculated words hit me like a physical blow, but my confusion quickly crystallized into a razor-sharp focus I hadn't experienced in months. My fingers moved almost automatically as I typed back, "Understood." Little did they know, I was about to unleash a plan that would turn their world upside down. Before I reveal exactly how I flipped the script on my backstabbing relatives, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from, and smash that subscribe button if you're hungry for some well-deserved justice. TechFlow Solutions wasn't born from some grand master plan. It emerged from pure desperation. Fresh out of college with my computer science degree, I walked straight into the worst economic downturn in decades. 68 rejection letters and endless ignored emails later, I finally accepted the harsh truth. Nobody was going to hand me the opportunity I craved. The solution became crystal clear. I had to forge my own path. My headquarters was a converted corner of my parents' basement, equipped with nothing more than a wobbly card table from Target and a refurbished laptop. My entire startup fund consisted of $7,500 scraped together from various summer jobs during my university years. Those initial months blur together in my memory. Like a fever dream, catching 3-hour naps on an air mattress next to my makeshift desk, sneaking showers at the local fitness center to maximize productivity, surviving on instant ramen and endless cups of coffee. 18-hour coding marathons became my daily reality. When exhaustion finally overtook me, I'd drift off dreaming in lines of code and algorithms. The first half year nearly broke me. 0 clients, 0 income, just my savings account bleeding out while credit card debt mounted like a crushing weight. My parents would quietly peek into the basement, worry etched across their faces, gently suggesting perhaps it was time to submit some real job applications. I'd flash them a confident smile and insist I was on the verge of a major breakthrough. Some days I almost convinced myself it was true. That breakthrough finally materialized through our debut product, an elegant, streamlined software solution designed specifically for small business inventory management. What set it apart wasn't just the intuitive user interface, but the price point that actually made sense. While industry giants demanded thousands for overcomplicated systems, I created something beautifully simple that small business owners could genuinely afford. When those first dozen customers signed contracts, I celebrated with my first real meal in months, a hamburger that tasted like pure victory. As our reputation spread and the customer base expanded, I realized I couldn't sustain everything single-handedly anymore. My first hire was Alex, a coding genius I'd connected with at a local tech networking event. Next came Lisa, whose natural warmth with customer service compensated for my sometimes brusque technical approach. While still pulling 20-hour days, for the first time, I could actually sleep more than 4 hours without watching everything crumble. When we reached 100 customers, we relocated to our first legitimate office space, a cramped room above an Italian restaurant that perpetually smelled of garlic and oregano. But it was officially ours, complete with a proper business sign and everything. That's when I made the decision that would eventually orchestrate my downfall, bringing family into the business. Marcus, my younger brother, possessed an MBA that seemed perfectly suited for managing our expanding financial operations. My sister Julia, with her marketing expertise, could help amplify our product visibility, while my cousin Tyler, who'd spent years in corporate sales, could accelerate our client acquisition beyond what I could achieve alone. I welcomed them with substantial equity packages, 10% each, while maintaining my controlling 51% ownership. The remaining 19% was distributed among early employees and initial investors. "This is incredible, Sarah," Marcus had said, embracing me tightly after signing his employment agreement. "I'll never forget what you've done for me. We're going to build a family empire," Julia had promised with tears in her eyes. Those words would later haunt my nightmares. The following years became a whirlwind of exponential growth. Our modest small business software evolved into a comprehensive product suite. Our client roster exploded from hundreds to thousands. Annual revenue skyrocketed from 1 million to 5 million, then 15 million. We upgraded to progressively larger offices, eventually occupying 4 floors of a prestigious downtown high-rise, with our company logo prominently displayed on the building exterior. Throughout this meteoric rise, I maintained the relentless work ethic that had launched us. While we could now afford proper staff, and I no longer slept on office furniture, I remained the first to arrive and last to leave. My personal life remained virtually non-existent. I missed friends' milestone celebrations for product launches. Dating happened in brief spurts between major projects, and starting a family remained a distant someday fantasy. David entered my life during our 9th year of operation, a patient, understanding man who somehow accepted my complete devotion to TechFlow Solutions. "Build your kingdom," he'd say supportively. "I'll be right here waiting." Looking back, he recognized what I couldn't see: my family systematically exploiting my tunnel vision focus on company success. The warning signs started subtly. Marcus suggested we could enhance efficiency by restructuring departments under my direct supervision. Julia mentioned that clients occasionally found my approach somewhat intense during presentations. Tyler wondered aloud whether my technical background might be constraining our expansion potential. "Maybe you should concentrate on product development while we handle business operations," Marcus proposed during a leadership meeting. "You look exhausted, sis." I dismissed these comments as typical growing pains in a rapidly scaling company. I trusted them implicitly. They were family, and family doesn't betray you, right? The dinner meeting with Phoenix Industries should have been straightforward. They represented our potentially largest client ever, a national retail chain seeking to completely overhaul their digital infrastructure. After months of proposals and demonstrations, this dinner was supposed to be a formality before contract signing. I arrived early at the upscale restaurant, reviewing key presentation points with our team, when Marcus strolled in with Julia and Tyler, 20 minutes behind schedule. I immediately sensed something was off. They'd clearly been discussing something that abruptly stopped when they spotted me. "Sorry we're running late," Marcus said with his trademark easy smile. "Last-minute strategy session." Throughout dinner, I presented our implementation roadmap. Every time I highlighted our technical capabilities, Marcus would interrupt. "What my sister means," he'd interject, "is that while Sarah handles the development side, our executive team has crafted a more comprehensive strategic approach." I felt like I'd been rendered invisible at my own presentation. When the Phoenix CEO inquired about our 5-year growth strategy, Marcus responded without even glancing in my direction. "We're transitioning toward enterprise-level solutions," he declared confidently. The small business sector Sarah originally targeted served its purpose, but we've evolved beyond that limited vision. Evolved beyond my vision? I nearly choked on my wine. This was news to me, abandoning our core market, the very foundation of our success. During the drive back to headquarters, I confronted him directly. "What was that comment about evolving beyond our small business focus?" Marcus exchanged a meaningful look with Julia in the back seat before answering. "It's just client-facing language, Sarah. Phoenix wants to hear that we're thinking bigger." "That's a pretty fundamental strategic shift to decide without consulting the CEO," I replied sharply. "You've been so immersed in technical details," Julia chimed in smoothly. "We didn't want to burden you with every strategic conversation." "Every strategic conversation? Like completely pivoting our company's core mission?" That evening, I remained at the office late, troubled by the interaction. Around 10 p.m., while heading to the break room for coffee, I overheard Julia's voice drifting from the conference room. The door was slightly ajar. "Sarah's undeniably brilliant with product development, but she's becoming a liability in client relationships," she was saying. She's too emotionally attached to the original concept. We need more flexibility at the executive level. The board shares those concerns, Tyler's voice responded. They're questioning whether we need more seasoned leadership to reach the next tier. I froze, coffee mug suspended halfway to my lips. The board was discussing replacing me? When had my family members started having private board conversations? Over the subsequent weeks, I noticed increasingly troubling patterns. Meeting invitations would arrive at the last minute, sometimes after meetings had already concluded. Sorry, it was scheduled on short notice, became the standard excuse. Decisions about senior hiring or market expansion opportunities would be presented as finalized, requiring only my ceremonial approval. When I objected, I'd receive exasperated sighs and comments like, "We covered this thoroughly last week, Sarah. You must have forgotten." I began meticulously documenting these incidents, my methodical engineering mind suggesting this information might prove valuable someday. The gaslighting became so systematic that I started questioning my own memory and judgment. The stress manifested physically. I dropped 20 pounds in 6 weeks. Sleep became elusive, replaced by 3 a.m. anxiety spirals. I developed a persistent facial tic that no amount of concealer could hide. During video conferences, I caught glimpses of myself, hollow-eyed and tense, a ghost of the confident founder I'd once been. Then came the conversation that changed everything. I'd returned early from a Chicago business trip due to flight cancellations, arriving at the office around 8 p.m. The building seemed empty, but I noticed lights in the main conference room. As I approached to investigate, voices became audible through the partially open door. The attorney confirmed there's a clause in the original incorporation documents, Tyler was explaining. If the majority board determines the CEO is acting against company interests, they can authorize a new share issuance that would dilute her ownership below controlling levels. My blood turned to ice. They weren't just plotting to remove me as CEO. They were scheming to steal my controlling ownership of my own company. She's lost touch with market realities, Julia added. TechFlow Solutions has outgrown her capabilities. She's still managing it like a startup when we should be competing with industry leaders. The engineering team respects her, but the business requires different leadership now, Marcus continued. Are you confident about these performance documentation? Asked Patricia Wilson, a board member whose voice I recognized. We've been carefully recording everything, Marcus replied. Missed meetings, inadequate preparation, client concerns about her technical fixation, missed opportunities due to her inflexibility. It's all documented here. I heard papers shuffling, presumably their case file against me. A decade of sacrificing everything for this company, and they'd been building evidence to push me out. What about potential legal challenges? Patricia inquired. She won't accept this quietly. That's why we've retained Catherine, Tyler said, introducing a voice I didn't recognize, presumably their attorney. She specializes in corporate restructuring and complex leadership transitions. We have multiple options, this Catherine explained. Share dilution is our primary strategy. We've also identified potential fiduciary duty breaches we could leverage if necessary. Fiduciary duty breaches? I'd never done anything except prioritize the company's success, often at tremendous personal cost. What's our timeline? Patricia asked. We're prepared to proceed immediately, Marcus said confidently. Documentation is complete. We'll call an emergency board meeting this week, present our case, and vote. Once the board approves share issuance, we'll inform Sarah. By the time she can mount a legal response, it'll be finalized. She'll be upset initially, Julia added with rehearsed sympathy that made my stomach churn. But we'll offer a generous severance package and a ceremonial position, founder and technical advisor, or something similar. She created this company, Patricia noted, sounding uncomfortable. Are we certain this is necessary? The company has outgrown her leadership, Marcus repeated firmly. This isn't personal. It's business. Not personal? My own family was plotting to steal my life's work, and it wasn't personal? I'd heard enough. Part of me wanted to burst through that door and confront them, to watch their faces as they realized they'd been caught. But the strategic part of my brain, the part that had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, held me back. Knowledge was power, and they didn't know I possessed it. Instead, I silently retreated, exited through a side door, and left the building. Once safely in my car several blocks away, I finally allowed the tears to come. Years of work, my family, my company, all built on quicksand. After crying until no tears remained, I drove home in a daze. As I pulled into my parking space, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Expect a call from our attorney." So they'd accelerated their timeline. Maybe someone had spotted me at the building after all. It didn't matter now. What mattered was my response. I barely remember entering my apartment. David took one look at my expression and knew something catastrophic had occurred. I collapsed onto our couch, phone still clutched in my trembling hand, and recounted everything in a hollow voice that didn't sound like mine. "They can't do this," he insisted, pacing our living room frantically. "You built that company. You own the majority stake." "They found a workaround," I said, the attorney's words echoing in my mind. Something about diluting shares if the CEO acts against company interests. "That's absurd. You are the company's interests." I nodded mechanically, but my mind was already racing ahead. The initial shock was fading, replaced by something colder and more calculated. I picked up my phone. "I need to call Jennifer." Jennifer Rodriguez had been my personal attorney for years, handling everything from our initial incorporation to major contracts. She'd stepped back as we grew and developed internal legal counsel, a team that apparently now served my family, not me. Despite the late hour, nearly 11 p.m., Jennifer answered on the second ring. I put her on speaker and explained the situation as clinically as possible. "Those ungrateful little—" Jennifer caught herself. "Sorry, let me think." I could practically hear her legal mind processing the problem. "First thing tomorrow, I need all incorporation documents, bylaws, board minutes, everything. But Sarah, if you still hold 51% ownership, you maintain control. They can't call board meetings without you." They mentioned some clause about share dilution if I'm acting against company interests. Those provisions exist sometimes, but they're extremely difficult to enforce, especially against a founder. What's their evidence? They've been compiling a file, missed meetings, client complaints, lost opportunities, all manufactured or exaggerated, I'm certain. This emergency board meeting is planned for this week. That was their original plan, but Marcus just texted that I should expect their attorney's call. They might be moving faster. "Then we accelerate too," Jennifer said decisively. "What's your objective here, Sarah? Fight to maintain control or exit with fair compensation?" The question hit me like a physical blow. Until that moment, I hadn't considered that staying might be impossible. TechFlow Solutions was my identity, my life's work. But the thought of continuing to work alongside family members who had so thoroughly betrayed me. "I need time to think," I said finally. After ending the call with Jennifer, I sat in silence, David beside me, his hand warm and steady on mine. The company I'd built from nothing was about to be stolen by my own family. The betrayal cut so deep it felt physical, like a blade between my ribs. "What do you want to do?" David asked softly. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think strategically rather than emotionally. If I fought, it would be ugly, public, and prolonged. Even if I won, the company would be damaged, possibly beyond repair, and I'd be working alongside people I could never trust again. "I think I need to let go," I said finally, the words painful to speak aloud. But on my terms, not theirs. Sleep was impossible that night. Instead, I researched, made notes, and formulated a plan. By dawn, fueled by determination and excessive caffeine, I had my answer. Next-Gen Solutions had been our closest competitor for years. Where we focused on small to medium businesses, they targeted larger enterprises. Our software suites were complementary with minimal overlap. They'd made acquisition overtures in the past, which I'd rejected, determined to keep TechFlow Solutions independent. But independence was no longer viable. At 6:30 a.m., I called Robert Harrison, NextGen's CEO. We'd met at various industry conferences over the years and maintained cordial professional relations. Sarah, he sounded surprised. Is everything all right? It's quite early. I need to meet with you today, privately. It's regarding an acquisition opportunity. There was a pause. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the Metropolitan Hotel at 1 p.m.? The bar there is discreet, and no one from our industry typically frequents it. Another pause. I'll be there. I spent the morning preparing with Jennifer, who arrived at my apartment at 9 a.m. with a stack of legal documents and a determined expression. We reviewed every possible scenario, every question Robert might ask, every counteroffer he might present. The Metropolitan Hotel's bar was nearly deserted at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. I spotted Robert immediately, tall, distinguished, impeccably dressed as always. His eyebrows rose when he saw Jennifer beside me, but he greeted us both professionally. I assume this is serious if you've brought counsel, he said once we were seated in a private corner booth. I'm selling my shares in TechFlow Solutions, I said without preamble. All 51%. I want NextGen to acquire them. To his credit, Robert showed no surprise beyond a slight widening of his eyes. May I ask why? Last time we discussed potential merger opportunities, you were quite adamant about maintaining independence. Circumstances have changed, I replied simply. Are you interested or not? Obviously, I'm interested, but I need to understand what I'm acquiring. Is there something problematic with the company I should know about? Jennifer interjected smoothly. TechFlow Solutions is financially robust with strong growth projections. This is a personal decision on Sarah's part. Robert studied me for a long moment. Family complications? I maintained a neutral expression. The terms would include retaining all current staff except for 3 specific executives who would receive appropriate severance packages. Those details would be handled by NextGen after acquisition. Understanding dawned on his face. The next hour was spent negotiating. Robert was shrewd but fair. By 3 p.m., we had a preliminary agreement. $85 million for my 51% ownership, with provisions for retaining key employees and maintaining the TechFlow Solutions brand as a NextGen division. The 3 family members would be removed from their positions with generous but not excessive severance packages. One crucial condition: absolute confidentiality until deal closure. No one, not my family, not the board, not even my closest colleagues, could know until it was finalized. We can fast-track this, Robert said. Documentation ready by tomorrow morning, fund transfer by afternoon. Perfect, I replied, feeling strangely calm now that the decision was made. And Robert, thank you. He shook his head slightly. Don't thank me. This is an excellent business opportunity for NextGen. I'm sorry it comes at such personal cost to you. That night was the longest of my life. I lay awake beside David, reviewing every detail of the past decade. The company I'd built from nothing, the family I'd trusted and brought into it, the betrayal that had shattered everything beyond repair. Are you certain about this? David asked softly in the darkness. Yes, I replied. They gave me no choice. At 8 a.m. the next morning, I met Robert and our respective legal teams at his attorney's office. The paperwork was extensive but clear. With each signature, I felt a piece of my old life falling away. At 2:47 p.m., Robert received confirmation from his bank. The funds had transferred. TechFlow Solutions was no longer mine. It's done, he said quietly. I nodded, feeling strangely weightless. The press release goes out at 4 p.m. Yes, my team will handle everything from here. I shook his hand, thanked Jennifer, and walked out into the bright afternoon sun. For the first time in a decade, I had nowhere I needed to be, no crisis to solve, no company to run. I pulled out my phone and looked at Marcus's text from the previous evening. Expect a call from our attorney. After a moment's consideration, I typed back a single word. Understood. Then I drove to the TechFlow Solutions building one final time. It was mid-afternoon, and I knew from years of routine that Marcus, Julia, and Tyler would be at their usual restaurant, plotting my removal over expense account lunches. The irony almost made me smile. I used my keycard one last time, went to my office, and packed my personal belongings into a single box. Photos, awards, the coffee mug my first employee had given me years ago. So little to show for so much time. As I walked out, I nodded to the receptionist. "Have a good day, Carmen." She smiled, unaware that anything had changed. "You too, Ms. Chen." I placed my keycard on her desk. "I won't be needing this anymore." I was sitting at a small cafe 4 blocks from the TechFlow Solutions building when my phone buzzed with a news alert. At exactly 4 p.m., breaking: Next Gen Solutions acquires controlling interest in TechFlow Solutions. The press release was live. 4 minutes later, my phone rang. Marcus's name flashing on the screen. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Declined. Then Julia. Declined. Tyler. Declined. The text messages started flooding in. "Marcus, what have you done? Call me immediately." Julia. "Sarah, please tell me this isn't real." Tyler. "You can't do this to us, to your family." The irony of that last message almost made me laugh. I silenced my phone, finished my coffee, and walked to the hotel where I'd booked a room for the night. I didn't want to be at my apartment when they inevitably showed up there. By the time I reached my hotel room, I had 22 missed calls. By dinner, 31 voicemails filled my inbox, their tones evolving from shock to anger to desperate pleading as the reality of what had happened sank in. I ordered room service and finally listened to some of them. Marcus's first message, voice tight with barely controlled rage. "What the hell, Sarah? You sold your shares without even consulting us. Call me back now." Julia, already tearful. "How could you do this? We're your family. Please call me back so we can fix this." Tyler, attempting a reasonable tone that didn't mask his panic. "Sarah, there's been a huge misunderstanding. We need to talk immediately." The later messages grew more desperate as they apparently learned the details of the deal. Marcus again, tone incredulous. "We're being terminated. They can't do that. You can't do that. I have a contract." Julia now sobbing. "Please, Sarah, I have a mortgage, car payments. I need this job. We can work this out. I know we can." Tyler, mask of reasonableness completely gone. "You backstabbing? You'll regret this. We're family. You don't do this to family." That last one made me flinch. I don't do this to family, after what they had planned to do to me. Around 9 p.m., my phone lit up with an email from Robert. "Sarah, transition proceeding as planned. Your family members have been informed of the organizational changes. As expected, they're not taking it well. They've threatened legal action, but our counsel assures me their positions are without merit given the clear documentation of the share transfer. I've assigned security to monitor the situation. Let me know if you need anything." At 10:23 p.m., my building security called. "Ms. Chen, your brother and sister are here demanding to see you. They seem quite agitated. Should I send them up?" "No," I replied. "I'm not available. Please ask them to leave, or you'll need to call the police." "Understood, ma'am." I could imagine the scene. Marcus, red-faced and demanding. Julia, tearful and manipulative, both insisting they needed to speak with me right away. The family emergency gambit that had worked countless times in our childhood, but not this time. As midnight approached, the calls finally slowed. My phone showed a final tally: 43 missed calls, 32 voicemails, 67 text messages. A decade of building a company gone in a day. A lifetime of family relationships shattered. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt only profound exhaustion and, underneath it, the first stirrings of relief. It was over. They couldn't hurt me anymore. The next morning brought a flurry of industry news coverage about the acquisition. Most were straightforward business stories. Next Gen Solutions expands market share with strategic acquisition, and software competitors unite in surprise deal. A few hinted at drama. TechFlow Solutions founder sells controlling interest. Family executives ousted. Robert called mid-morning. "The transition team is in place. Your family members have been escorted from the building with their personal effects. The remaining leadership has been briefed. How are they taking it? I asked, surprised to find I still cared. Shocked but adapting. Your CTO, Alex, asked me to tell you he understands and to call him when you're ready. That brought the first real pang of regret. Alex had been with me almost from the beginning. I owed him an explanation at least. Thank you, Robert, for everything. It's business, he replied, echoing Marcus's cold words from the meeting I'd overheard. Though for what it's worth, I think you made the right decision. They left you no choice. Throughout the day, desperate messages from my family continued, though at a slower pace. Their tone had shifted again. Now they were focusing on legal threats. Marcus, our attorney says we can challenge this sale. You had a fiduciary duty to inform the board before selling your shares. Julia, the company bylaws required you to offer your shares to existing shareholders first. You're going to lose everything when this goes to court. Tyler, hope you enjoyed your little power play because it's going to cost you. We're filing for an emergency injunction tomorrow. I forwarded these to Jennifer, who responded quickly. Empty threats. The sale was completely legal. They're grasping at straws. By the evening of the second day, a new kind of message started appearing from former colleagues, clients, even competitors. Some expressed shock or disappointment, but many offered support and understanding. Alex, heard the news? Call me when you're ready to talk. Whatever happened, I'm on your side. Lisa, figured something big was coming when you seemed so stressed lately. No judgment here. Take care of yourself. Michael, a longtime client. The industry won't be the same without you at the helm. Let me know if you need anything. These messages hit harder than my family's threats. These were the relationships that mattered, the ones built on mutual respect and shared goals rather than blood ties and obligation. On the third day, I received a final email from Robert. Legal team confirms all challenges from your family members have been rejected. Their employment has been formally terminated with severance as agreed. Security protocols remain in place, but no further incidents have occurred. When you're ready to discuss your next steps, I'd welcome a conversation. Your experience and vision would be valuable to us in many capacities. It was a generous offer, but I already knew I wouldn't accept it. That chapter of my life was closed. What came next would be entirely new. After 3 days of silence, I finally responded to Alex's message. I'm ready to talk. Coffee tomorrow? Then I sent one text to my family, a group message to all three. I'll meet you at Riverside Cafe tomorrow at 3 p.m. Come alone. This is non-negotiable. It was time to face them one last time. The Riverside Cafe sat on a quiet corner overlooking the park, far enough from TechFlow Solutions offices that we wouldn't encounter any employees. I arrived 45 minutes early, selected a table in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance, and asked the manager to keep other patrons at a distance. As a precaution, I'd arranged for one of Robert's security team to sit unobtrusively at the bar. Marcus arrived first, precisely at 3 p.m. Always punctual, one of his few admirable traits. His normally immaculate appearance was noticeably disheveled. Wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed. He spotted me immediately, his expression hardening as he approached. Sarah, he said stiffly, taking a seat across from me. Julia and Tyler arrived together minutes later. Julia's eyes were red and puffy, her makeup hastily applied. Tyler looked angry rather than defeated, his jaw clenched tight. After they sat down, uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I let it stretch, studying their faces. These people I'd known all my life, whom I'd trusted implicitly, who had planned to take everything from me. Well, Marcus finally snapped. You called this meeting. What do you want? I want to understand, I replied calmly. I want to hear you explain in your own words why my family decided to betray me. Betray you? Julia's voice rose shrilly. You're the one who sold the company out from under us without a word, without even a warning. Without a warning? I repeated, keeping my voice level. Like the warning you were going to give me before diluting my shares and removing me as CEO? Their expressions flickered. Shock, then guilt, quickly masked by defiance. I don't know what you think you heard, Marcus began. Stop. I cut him off sharply. I was there, Marcus. Last Wednesday when I was supposed to be in Denver. I came back early and heard everything in the conference room, every word about the documentation you'd been gathering against me, every detail of your plan to use that clause in the incorporation documents to dilute my shares, every comment about how the company had outgrown me and needed different leadership. The color drained from their faces as realization dawned. I'd known everything before making my move. You misunderstood, Marcus attempted weakly. We were just discussing contingencies, options. Options that involved stealing my company? I pulled out my phone and played a recording, one I'd made standing outside that conference room door. Their voices, clear and damning, filled the quiet corner of the cafe. The documentation is solid. We've recorded every instance where her decisions have cost us money or opportunities. She's lost her vision. TechFlow Solutions has outgrown her. We'll call an emergency board meeting this week, present our case, and vote. Once the board approves the share issuance, we'll inform Sarah. By the time she can respond legally, it'll be done. I stopped the recording and looked at their stricken faces. Still want to claim I misunderstood? Julia broke first, tears spilling down her cheeks. We never meant to hurt you, Sarah. We just thought the company needed to evolve. You were so resistant to change, so fixated on your original vision. My original vision built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, I replied. My original vision gave all three of you jobs when you needed them, equity when you hadn't earned it, and opportunities you'd never have had otherwise. It wasn't personal, Tyler insisted, echoing Marcus's words from the meeting. It was business. It became personal the moment my family conspired behind my back, I said coldly. The moment you decided loyalty meant nothing compared to control. And what would you call what you did? Marcus demanded, finding his voice again. You sold us out to our biggest competitor. You got your millions while ensuring we lost everything. I protected myself when I discovered you planned to take everything from me, I corrected him. And you haven't lost everything, Marcus. The severance packages are generous. 6 months salary, health benefits, glowing references. You'll land on your feet, unlike what you planned for me. A ceremonial title with no real power, watching as you dismantled everything I built. We would have taken care of you, Julia protested weakly. Like you took care of me by documenting my every misstep, by holding secret meetings with the board, by planning my removal like some corporate coup? None of them had a response to that. I need to know why, I said after a moment, my voice softer now. Was it just greed, power, or did you really believe I was hurting the company? Marcus stared at the table, unable to meet my eyes. It started small, conversations about how we could grow faster if you weren't so cautious, how much more we could be worth if we pivoted to enterprise clients, he said finally. Then it became a plan, Julia admitted, wiping at her tears. And once we started down that path, it felt exciting, like we were taking control, making big moves. We convinced ourselves we were doing what was best for TechFlow Solutions, Tyler added, and for ourselves too. Yes, she whispered, for ourselves too. Tyler, ever the pragmatist, leaned forward. What happens now, Sarah? Is there any way to undo this? To work something out? I shook my head. The sale is final. NextGen owns controlling interest in TechFlow Solutions now. Your positions have been eliminated. There's nothing to work out. And our shares? Marcus asked. The 10% each we still own? Still yours. Currently worth about $16 million each at the acquisition price. You're not destitute, Marcus. His eyes widened slightly at the figure. Even now, after everything, the money was what he cared about most. What about you? Julia asked. Will you work for NextGen now? No, I'm done with TechFlow Solutions. Done with all of it. Just like that? Marcus sounded genuinely confused. 10 years of your life, and you walk away? You left me no choice. I stood up, gathering my purse. I've said what I came to say. Don't contact me again. Not for reconciliation, not for business advice, not for anything. As far as I'm concerned, I no longer have a family. Julia let out a soft sob, but made no move to stop me. Marcus's face had gone stony, his pride preventing any show of remorse. Tyler looked calculating, probably already planning his next career move. As I turned to leave, Marcus called after me. Was it worth it, Sarah? Destroying your family for revenge? I paused, looking back at them one last time. I didn't destroy anything, Marcus. You did that when you decided a company was worth more than your sister. I took a deep breath. I hope the money brings you happiness. I really do, because it's all you have left. Then I walked out of the cafe into the bright afternoon sun, feeling lighter with each step. The truth had been spoken, the ties had been severed. Whatever came next would be entirely up to me. The fallout continued for weeks. Industry blogs picked up on the drama with headlines like, "Family Feud Leads to Surprise Tech Acquisition," and "TechFlow Solutions Founder Outmaneuvers Family Coup." Former employees gave anonymous interviews, sharing rumors and speculation. For a brief period, I was the center of a minor tech industry scandal. Some painted me as ruthless and calculating, the founder who sold out her own family for a payday. Others portrayed me as the victim, the innovative creator pushed out by greedy relatives. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. My family made several attempts to challenge the sale legally, but as Jennifer had predicted, none gained traction. The documentation was impeccable, the transfer completely legal. After a few weeks, the lawsuits were quietly dropped. I heard through industry contacts that Marcus had landed a CFO position at a mid-sized tech firm, a step down from TechFlow Solutions, but still prestigious. Julia was consulting for marketing agencies, and Tyler had started his own sales training business, leveraging his experience and industry connections. They had survived, just as I knew they would. The severance packages I'd insisted on with Robert had given them time to regroup. The shares they still owned provided financial security. I hadn't sought to destroy them, only to protect myself. As for me, I disappeared from the tech scene entirely. No interviews, no conference appearances, no LinkedIn updates. I needed time and space to process everything that had happened
after selling
and to figure
TechFlow
out what came
Solutions
next. Passed in a blur of sleep, takeout food, and mindless television. After 10 years of 18-hour workdays and constant pressure, my body and mind simply shut down, demanding the rest I'd denied them for so long. David was my anchor during this time, handling practical matters and gently encouraging me to eat, shower, and occasionally step outside. He never pushed for decisions or plans, understanding intuitively that I needed this time to recover. "You'll know when you're ready to think about what's next," he said one evening as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset. "There's no rush." He was right, of course. The $85 million sitting in my investment accounts meant I never needed to work again if I didn't want to. Financial pressure, the constant companion of my adult life, had vanished overnight. By the second month, the fog began to lift. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez, who specialized in entrepreneurial burnout and family estrangement. Our twice-weekly sessions became crucial to my healing process. "What you're experiencing is similar to grief," she explained during one session. "You've lost your company, your professional identity, and your family relationships all at once. It's natural to feel adrift." "But I chose this," I pointed out. "I sold the company. I cut ties with my family." "A choice made under duress is still traumatic," she replied gently. "And choosing to protect yourself doesn't mean you don't grieve what you've lost." Those words unlocked something in me. I'd been holding back my grief, feeling I didn't deserve it since I'd engineered my own exit. Once I gave myself permission to mourn, for the company I'd loved, the family relationships I'd treasured, and the identity I'd built. Healing began in earnest. I started reaching out to friends I'd neglected during the TechFlow Solutions years. Coffee dates with college roommates, Dinner with neighbors I'd barely spoken to, despite living in the same building for years. Long phone calls with my elderly grandmother in Oregon, my father's mother, unconnected to the family drama. I always thought those siblings of yours were a bit too impressed with themselves, Grandma Rose commented dryly when I finally told her what had happened. Your father would have been appalled by their behavior. My parents had passed away years earlier. My mother before TechFlow Solutions was founded. My father just as it was beginning to succeed. I'd often wondered if things would have turned out differently had they lived. Would their presence have prevented my siblings' betrayal? Or would they, too, have been seduced by the allure of control and power? 4 months after the sale, I received an unexpected email from Alex, my former CTO. Lunch next week? No agenda, just miss your face. Promise not to ask about your mysterious disappearance from the tech world unless you want to talk about it. I surprised myself by accepting immediately. We met at a small bistro far from the tech district. The first few minutes were awkward, neither of us quite knowing how to navigate our changed relationship. But soon we fell into the easy rhythm we'd always had. How is it? I finally asked. Working for NextGen? Alex considered the question carefully. Different, more corporate structure, more processes, but they've kept most of the engineering team intact and given us good resources. He paused. They're not you, Sarah. No one could be, but they're not bad. I nodded, relieved. I'd worried about the teams I'd left behind. What about you? He asked. Any regrets about selling? No. It was the right decision given the circumstances. I twirled pasta around my fork, gathering my thoughts. I regret that it came to that point. I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. But mostly, I regret losing 10 years to a company that became more important to me than anything else. Alex nodded, understanding in his eyes. So what's next for the brilliant Sarah Chen? The question didn't trigger the anxiety it once would have. Instead, I felt a small flutter of excitement. I'm not sure yet, but I'm starting to have ideas. Those ideas crystallized over the following weeks. I began researching, making notes, and having exploratory conversations with people in different industries. A pattern emerged, a new direction that combined my technical skills with the lessons I'd learned through TechFlow Solutions' rise and fall. 7 months after selling the company, I launched a small consulting firm specializing in helping female entrepreneurs navigate the tech industry. Not how to code or build products, plenty of resources existed for that, but how to protect themselves legally, balance growth with sustainability, and maintain control of their companies through various funding stages. I kept it intentionally small, just me, an assistant, and a network of trusted specialists I could bring in as needed. No family members, no board of directors, no outside investors. The work was fulfilling in a way TechFlow Solutions hadn't been for years, less about growth metrics and more about genuinely helping others avoid the pitfalls I'd encountered. Alongside the consulting work, I used a portion of my TechFlow Solutions proceeds to establish a tech incubator specifically for women-founded startups, called Foundation Labs. It provided not just funding, but mentorship, legal guidance, and a supportive community. Applications flooded in immediately, confirming what I'd long suspected. There were brilliant women with transformative ideas who just needed someone to believe in them and show them the path. David proposed on our 4th anniversary, 8 months after I'd sold TechFlow Solutions. A simple, private moment on the same balcony where he'd assured me there was no rush to figure out my next steps. I've watched you rebuild yourself these past months, he said, holding the ring. Stronger, wiser, but still just as brilliant and determined. I want to build a life with that woman. We married 4 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and my grandmother. Conspicuously absent were any Chen siblings. For our honeymoon, we traveled for 2 months, visiting places I'd always been too busy to see. The ancient ruins of Greece, the misty highlands of Scotland, the vibrant markets of Morocco, the world beyond quarterly reports and product launches. It was during this trip that I received an unexpected email from Julia. The subject line read simply, "When you're ready." I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity, or perhaps some lingering sense of connection, made me open it. Sarah, I don't expect forgiveness or even a response. I just need to say I'm sorry. Not for the consequences I'm facing, those are deserved, but for betraying you, for letting greed and ambition override loyalty and love, for forgetting that you gave us opportunities we hadn't earned and trust we didn't deserve. I'm seeing a therapist now. I probably should have done that years ago. She's helping me understand the jealousy I've always felt toward you, your intelligence, your vision, your strength. I think I wanted to take your company because I could never be you. If someday you're willing to have coffee, I'd be grateful. If not, I understand. With regret and love, Julia. I read it 3 times, feeling the words settle into the wounded places inside me. Not healing them, that would take much more than one email, but acknowledging them in a way that felt important. I showed it to David over dinner that night. Are you going to respond? He asked. Not yet, I replied. Maybe someday, but not yet. I didn't hear from Marcus or Tyler. Perhaps their pride prevented them from reaching out. Perhaps they hadn't experienced the same remorse Julia had, or perhaps they simply understood that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. A year after selling TechFlow Solutions, I received news that the company was struggling under NextGen's management. Robert had been replaced as CEO after a corporate restructuring. The new leadership had pushed too aggressively toward enterprise clients, alienating the small business customer base I'd cultivated so carefully. Several key engineering team members, including Alex, had left. I felt a complex mix of emotions: sadness for the employees caught in the turmoil, vindication that my outdated vision had been more viable than my family had claimed, and a surprising lack of personal investment. TechFlow Solutions was no longer my company, no longer my problem. I had built something new. Foundation Labs had funded 18 startups in its first year, 12 of which were showing strong early growth. My consulting practice had a waiting list of clients. David and I were discussing starting a family, something I'd always deferred for someday when TechFlow Solutions was stable enough. 2 years to the day after selling my company, I finally agreed to meet Julia for coffee. We chose a neutral location, a small shop in a neighborhood neither of us frequented. She looked older, more subdued, but there was a clarity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Thank you for coming, she said simply. I'm not sure why I did, I admitted. We talked for almost 3 hours about her therapy journey, about my new ventures, about the lessons we'd both learned. We didn't discuss reconciliation or rebuilding our relationship. Some damages run too deep for easy repair. But we spoke honestly, without the manipulation and hidden agendas that had poisoned our last years at TechFlow Solutions. As we prepared to leave, Julia asked, "Do you think you'll ever speak to Marcus or Tyler again?" I considered the question carefully. I don't know. Maybe someday. But they would need to understand what they did wrong first, not just regret the consequences. She nodded. They're still angry, still blaming you for everything. That's their choice, I said, feeling no particular emotion about it. We all make choices, and we all live with the results. Walking away from that coffee shop, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness exactly, but a recognition that what had happened was now firmly in the past. My present and future belonged to me, shaped by my choices rather than reactions to betrayal. The company I'd built from nothing had been taken from me by the people I trusted most, but in losing it, I'd found something more valuable: self-knowledge, true independence, and the wisdom to build a life that couldn't be stolen by anyone. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, I hope my story gives you strength. Sometimes the greatest success comes after our most painful failures. Sometimes we need to lose what we thought was everything to discover what truly matters. And sometimes the family we choose proves more loyal than the family we're born into. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built or loved because staying would have cost you too much? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggles. Remember, your worth isn't determined by what others try to take from you, but by what you choose to build despite their efforts. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.